All right. Hello, everyone. Today, I have a special interview where we're going to be talking about the process and the vision of expanding your creative universe and your product offerings beyond comics with my good friend, Anthony Christou. My guest today is an award-winning illustrator. He's a concept artist and comic book writer and artist. His clients have included Disney, Grinding Gear Games, Wolf Creek Productions, Odin's Eye Entertainment, and many more. And he's the creator of the fantasy comic book series and card game Luminous Ages, which has over a dozen successful Kickstarter launches to its credit. Welcome back to Comics Launch, Anthony Christou. How you doing, Anthony?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me, Tyler.
Now, so that everyone knows how gracious Anthony is with his time, he's in the middle of the night. He launched just a few hours ago his latest Kickstarter project for the By Z and the Book of Monsters. And it's in the middle of the night in Australia. You'll be able to hear that from his voice where he's from. But so thanks for being here, Anthony. How are you feeling? And congrats on the latest launch.
Yeah, thanks, man. No, I'm feeling great. I'm off to a great start. I usually do work late anyway because of being an artist and all, but about 41% funded in Australia, and it's only been about 7 hours. So we'll see by tomorrow, 5:30 Australian time. I think it's a very strong launch, one of my strongest launches yet. Even better launch than I was just looking at Tavern of Dreams, my last illustrated novel. It's got a lot more funding, and we're not even charging the postage yet. We're doing that later on back at Kit. So, yeah, really grateful. It's been done a lot of work in getting this together. So, yeah, and I'm grateful for the team that's on board as well. There's a lot of people, a lot of creators contributing to the comic anthology. The D&D aspect, we've got a community tester and a writer, an editor on it, editing the D&D side of things, and or the RPG side of things, should I say? And yeah, just yeah, a lot of people contributing to it. Just include, and of course, I'm doing a lot of the work as well. But having a lot of people to help has made it a lot more easier to manage. So it's Rob Richardson, the first graphic novelist who worked on the first Luminous Ages graphic novels, come on board to do 3D modeling as well. So he's back on. He's always been on the team, but he's back on that in that role as a 3D artist. And so it's between him and another Polish artist, Dmitry Yukovsky, and myself. We're doing the 3D, but I owe a lot to those guys who did the 3D files with my listening to my direction and me saying, no, it's going to be like this, and this monster's going to be like that. And you know, obviously, I did a lot of the concepts behind the monsters, the creatures, and the By-Z and the Book of Monsters. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a big launch and a lot going on here. So we're going to get into all of that. But before we did that, I just wanted to do a quick check-in with how things are going in for you and for Australian creators in particular. You know, it was weird. Last year, we sort of started off and kicked things off with the wildfires and talking to some creators about the wildfires in Australia. And
Yeah.
little did we know that that was like the least of our international worries of what was
Yeah.
going to be going on in between 2020 and carrying into 2021. But how are things going for you and creators in Australia? What's the scene like? And
I mean, the
what are you guys dealing with?
bushfires were pretty. Yeah, they were pretty bad, and I live in South Australia, so one of the really severe fires was Kangaroo Island, and most of that whole island burned. It was quite catastrophic, natural disaster in terms of how many animals died, and just the amount of people, homes lost. Pretty much, I think it was about 2/3 of that island, and I'm really close to that island. I literally can drive to the coast about 45 minutes there and catch a ferry to Kangaroo Island. I think even Bill Gates has a place there, a holiday home there. So, but it's a very beautiful place. But that was, I think it's starting to recover. Trees are growing back. I've got friends that have been going there back, visiting, injecting some money into the tourism there. But things are improving in Australia. COVID has done a sixer for us. It's been really, really hard for us here because the eastern states are under lockdown. They're starting to come out of lockdown. Melbourne is actually. I'm from Adelaide, but Melbourne's the next city over. That has had the longest lockdown internationally. the city that's had the longest lockdown internationally. It's been in lockdown for like months on end, and so a lot of businesses aren't doing very well in Melbourne, and I've got a lot of friends and family there, and it's quite distressing to hear what's going on.
Yeah.
But the end of the light, or the hope at the end of the tunnel, is that we've actually had quite a lot of uptake of vaccination. So a lot of people, 80%, nearly 80% of people got at least one vaccine in Sydney. Melbourne's about the same, 70, 80%. We're on track to really nip it in the bud in terms of getting everyone to that 80% level, and then we're going to open up everything in November, December. So yeah, I mean, it's not. We actually had 6 or 7 months of, I don't know if you call it freedom, but where we actually had cons going February, March, April, May, June, and then Sydney got the Delta strain, and it just went nuts. And been in lockdown again. The eastern states, should I say, have been in lockdown. I've been in SA. I've done all right because I've survived. There's been Viking and medieval fairs that I've attended, and they've been really good for my business with the fantasy stuff. I've luckily switched to selling a lot online. I had my last book launch. That was became the highest funded novel in Australia. And I also have got a licensing agent as well in America that has been licensing my work on puzzles and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, it's not the same as selling at conventions. It's the difference, you know, as you probably know, having like a physical store is always going to be better. But I have survived. Hasn't been easy, and really, I think this is I think the last month we have got a show starting in Brisbane. Brisbane has no cases like Adelaide, where I'm from, and I'm a guest at Brisbane Supernova for my comics for the series. So I'll be there selling my art on the 7th of November. So hopefully, you know, we start getting some shows, and like I said, I'm right, kind of like I've been surviving it, but I think another 3 or 4 months of this for me, and you know, as you know, I'm pretty much like a veteran in this in Australia. I'm probably, you know, one of the top 5 to 10 artists, you know, for comic publishing and fantasy art. Not to brag or anything. I mean, maybe even in the top 3 of fantasy artists in my country.
Right. And, well, when you see your spreads at conventions and the multiple tables and the backdrops and all of that you have to offer, yeah, it's not. It wouldn't surprise me that that you're an institution over there.
Yeah. But you know, I mean, I teach and mentor a few students, and I've had to help, like, I suppose, psychologically motivate them and to keep going, and it's been really hard for a lot of people. And luckily, some of them, the people that I know, haven't given up. That I've been teaching, some have. Like artists that I know that are really brilliant. I know a guy called Emerson Ward here in Adelaide. He does a lot of Viking fantasy art. He's like taking a break from art for a while because of the pandemic, and that's fair enough. You know, it's everyone copes with it differently, but it's. Yeah. I don't think it's been kind to anyone really, this pandemic, and no matter how, look, you know, even with my successes and all the notches on my belts, it's still, I've taken a hit. You know, I think a lot of people have, and probably yourself as well. You know.
Yeah, you know, it'll be interesting. I will definitely look back, and there will be a lot of things I'll be grateful for, but at the same time, you know, it does, as you said, it takes a toll, and I also think, like, even as we get out of it, there's still going to be some things that it'll, you know, there will be some lingering residual, just. I guess pain and some scar tissue from this whole experience, but hopefully they say whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and hopefully that'll be true for us as well.
It's an old Egyptian saying, I think.
Is that right? They're going to take credit for
it? I
think it is. Well, I want to talk about the big topic that I wanted to bring you on today and talk to you about, and that is really. Building an intellectual property, building, you know, starting with a comic, but then expanding beyond there. And as I've sort of in prep for our conversation today, looking back over what you've done in the last 6 years or so on Kickstarter in particular, but to date, from my count, you've done comic books and art books and card games and fantasy commissions and playmats and puzzles and t-shirts and illustrated novels. And for this new launch, you're adding an RPG campaign book and resin miniatures all around this world of Luminous agents that you've built. And I'm just curious, like, as you look back way back to that first launch, which was now more than 5 years ago.
Oh yeah.
Was this always the plan?
Yes, yeah, I think it was. I mean, like for me, I mean, I had big visions. I've always have had bigger picture visions. I've always been like, I want to create this big fantasy universe that I'm having fun with all the time. You know what I mean? And it's something that it's a labor of love. I pour hours into this, into the comic book art, into the illustrations, and it doesn't feel like a job to me. So like that first issue that I created, I just put it up there on Kickstarter. I think we raised $4,500 for issue 1 of Luminous Ages years ago for comic, and I had no idea. Had never met you as well, Tyler. I didn't knew no one, and I just kind of dove into it blindly, and succeeded. I got like 400% funded. I only wanted $1,000 to print issue 1, and that was a lot to me back then. Like, and it still is a lot. I mean, $1,000 is $1,000. So. But to raise around about the $4,500 mark was quite. It said to me, "There's something in this." I think that what makes my series unique. Sure, there are other series that have similar powers, but we have a whole universe where wizards, or we call them captivaries, can draw and capture their enemies on a page, or even to the point of architecture or buildings. Then we have luminaries that can draw. Like they've got ink that pours out of their fingers, and they can construct a monster and bring it to life out of a book. And based on their level of the wizard, their powers become bigger and stronger. And it's almost like these powers are on a grander scale. And as this book series progresses, you're going to see what the luminaries and captivaries are really capable of doing. And so I think there's been hints of those sort of powers in animes like Naruto, where one of the characters draws, like, I can't remember, it was a snake on a page and it comes to life. But imagine it's not just a spectral snake. It's actually a real creature that comes to life, and it has its own life, and it also can create spells and do some crazy stuff. So that's really the whole storyline behind the Luminate. No, I shouldn't say storyline, but that's kind of the elevator pitch. Is imagine you've got this amazing creative ability to manifest things into reality and do these crazy wild spells, and a whole universe that's where there's the dream plane and reality, and your powers are stronger in the dream world, and you can bring that out into reality. And yeah, I suppose comics are probably always going to be the best way to express it because it's so visual. So I mean, I think I'm always going to go back to comics. And then also the illustrated novel is just another way of expanding on the story as well. But I always had a big vision. I think the first painting I did was I won a Noman Workshop Award in California. So it was like it was basically, I actually drew a captivary in the corner. He was like drawing and trying to capture a flying elephant flying into a city. And the painting was called Castle Highlands. It won an award in 2013. So that drawing pretty much sparked the whole series, and that concept of what if I could capture whole entire enemies on a page, or a whole building, or maybe even a city. Maybe I'm spoiling things here for people, but or what if I could construct a blacksmith workshop in my book, and then bring that blacksmith workshop into life in reality, and it comes out of the book and all that sort of stuff. So I always had that vision of that, and then I also wanted to express a lot of issues of climate change in the book as well. Like, we've got wizards that are sort of vegan, so to speak, or plant-based wizards. And so we've got this environmental message in a lot of our books, and that's why I draw a lot of animals, or animals have a lot of say in the world. There's obviously the environmental aspect that I'm putting into there, and obviously my love of many mythologies and cultures. I really wanted to show diversity in my stories, and not because that's the cool thing to do. I just my family's from Cyprus, so Cyprus is a very diverse place in terms of cultures clashing there. The Egyptians were there, the Greeks, the Turks, the Syrians. Everyone's been in Cyprus, and I really wanted to express my love of many of the mythologies and cultures that have influenced where I'm from. And I basically, Luminous Ages is a big personal, not sure to say personal, but it's this big dream project for me, and it has been a dream making it. So I try to put my uniqueness to it, my own flavor to it, and I think it shows. I think because people are backing it. As you see, it's been going up while we're talking. So you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, I think a lot of creators that are out there, they have a tendency to silo themselves off a little bit. Like if you're a comic person, you know comics, you do comics, and so what do you launch? You launch comics. But one of the things that I think you've been able to take advantage of is just that you are multi-passionate in terms of your own interests and where you go, and so you've really explored a lot of different product offerings. I think the advantage that you have is that you understand that it all starts with really strong, compelling fantasy imagery, and that when you
yeah,
have that, well, the opportunities to expand into different product offerings really are vast. But at the same time, every time you break into a new category, there's new rules to learn, new things that you need to understand about the manufacturing of X, Y, or Z, and different kinds
yeah.
of products. And so, I guess I'm just interested, what are some of the things that you've learned about offering different types of products? Have you found some things or that you're like, oh, that one was a little bit of trouble, or I wish I had known about this before jumping into this product category? I'm trying to come up with some insights for the creators out there that would love
Yeah.
to expand their IP, but are also worried about not knowing what they don't know about certain products.
Yeah. Well, I think I've expanded, like you said, I've expanded into many different things. And I mean, there is always going to be a risk when you do stuff. I think, like when I did get an agent kind of just before COVID, around COVID, take licensing, and they started licensing my puzzles into like big retail stores like Kmart, and and obviously that I got paid for doing that, and I was like, started to think, even with the last book, Tavern of Dreams, I think, well, maybe I should release my own puzzle because maybe I'll make more money, because when you're licensing, you don't make all the money. It goes to, the manufacturer, so the publisher, and then they got to pay Kmart or whoever can, it's like, you end up
So
with a very,
break that down for a little bit, because I don't want to assume that anyone knows anything
yeah.
about licensing. So
Put it simply, like I would license an image. You license an image, and when you're selling, an image for a puzzle, you might end up making, if you're lucky, anywhere from 70 cents to $1 per puzzle, right? But the catch is, you don't have to handle any of that. You don't
right.
have to handle the manufacture, fulfillment. You've got a publisher as such, and you take a very small cut. But the publisher and the agent, they handle it all for you, and they get it into the retail space. And of course, it's just great exposure. The way it works with licensing, you want to license a lot of images. You don't just want to go, hey, I've only got 3 images. Right now, we have about probably 9 puzzle deals going around. So it all adds up, and it does bring an income in, some sort of income in, whether it could be anywhere from, depending on how many puzzles you have, from, $10,000 to $30,000 a year. But you need to license a lot of artwork. You know what I mean? But whereas I
So I'm
kind of,
curious on that, on those licensing deals. Is that an advance and then back end, or is that
yeah.
all back end?
Oh, no, advance. So
Okay,
you will get an advance from your agent, and then you get that once the image is sold, and then you get the back end once. Once you got to wait a while. You might be waiting 3 months to 6 months. You
yeah,
have to wait for the publisher to sell to the retailer. So once the retailer's bought every single puzzle off, or let's say there's 20,000 units sold, you can only collect royalties for say 10,000 of that puzzle if only 10,000 have sold of the 20,000
right.
units. So you have to, like, you can still collect checks, but you can't get all the money until all the units are sold to the retailer. And if the retailer doesn't sell them, it's not your fault, But usually, if they're selling 10,000, they're going to go for the other 10,000 or whatever happens. But it's just a good extra bit of residual income for doing nothing. And the big pitfall I fell into this year was with COVID, and it was all COVID's fault. It's just plain COVID, So the Tavern of Dreams novel did really well, and as a reward, I said I want to release my own Tavern of Dreams puzzle, an exclusive puzzle from my studio, and we sold quite a few. I think we sold 120 units. It didn't. I mean, it obviously cost a decent amount to manufacture, but then come shipping time, the container was huge. The cost for containers right now with the problems, it was almost the same price as printing the puzzle. So you're looking at 3,000 USD, and like you're going back. Like I now need to sell every single, not sell them all, but probably another 200 puzzles to make that money back. So now you really need. Can be a pitfall when you're getting a product that's really big, like a puzzle that's huge, and the box is big. It takes up more of the space of the palette. Whereas you might fit like 10 books in that puzzle, you know what I mean, or 10 issue 1 comics or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So
yeah, with plush toys, especially bigger plush toys, we've dealt with that, and I was definitely a little bit unpleasantly surprised at how much our shipping cost was just to get the books to the U.S. and now they're sitting in port. So, it's that is definitely something to consider. And one of the advantages of comics or card games that are just the package of cards, like they don't actually they can be packed nice and compact, whereas the board game space, that is something that they have to deal with a lot,
Yeah, well, this is why I thought with this, we just go with a hardcover book. It's a comic, obviously comic anthology with a graphic novel. But I'm actually manufacturing the resin miniatures here in Australia. Can I just grab some to show you, or is that cool? I've got some here. So,
yeah, well, let's talk about Resin Miniatures, because that is another thing that we haven't spoken a ton about on the Comics Launch podcast as of yet. It looks like for this latest launch that Anthony is offering a series of resin miniatures, but so break it down to me. First of all, talk to me like I'm a 3-year-old, talk to me like I'm a 7-year-old or whatever. What are STL digital miniatures, and why does anyone care about digital miniatures? That is not a space that I'm very well aware of, but I know on Kickstarter it is. But I know on Kickstarter it's a thing.
So, I mean, I don't know if you've played Dungeons and Dragons ever, or the board game.
I have never played Dungeons and Dragons, so I am a complete noob on all of this stuff.
Did you ever have Hero Quest in America? The game Hero Quest.
I'm familiar with the name somewhat, but again,
That's right, man. It's so good. I'm showing my true nerdy side there.
Yeah.
So, like obviously when you're playing games like Dungeons and Dragons, there's miniatures in the game. Like you have your figurines for your characters, you have your monsters that you're fighting, and when you're playing with friends around the table, you're going to set up your battle space and you're going to fight each other, and your characters go out and they go on a quest and they level up and all that. It's like a modern day video game. Nearly every modern day video game is based off of D&D. Any RPG game that's out there, it's basically using the mechanics of Dungeons and Dragons. And so a lot of D&D players will buy miniatures. And so what they're doing though now is there's resin printers out there, and a lot of the D&D dungeon masters or even players will buy a printer for whatever it is, $1,000, $500, and they print their own resin miniatures themselves. So they actually print them themselves at home. And so STL files these are 3D models that myself and my team. So I've done a few of them, but I've art directed a lot of this. But Rob Richardson and Dmitry Yakovsky, they've helped with doing a lot of the models, these very finite details, and making sure it translates into a 3D print. So anyone who's got a 3D printer at home can get the files and print them. So now there's obviously what I've done to protect my IP is I've offered generic Chinese mythology as the STL files, the files that people can, obviously they've got a single use for them to use. Mm-hmm. But then files, characters that are more based on our universe, like Arcturus, Thrakos, Lena, the masked ones, our villains, any characters that are unique to our comic series, we're only releasing them. You can only buy them from me as resin miniatures. So I will be printing them up. I have a couple of people that are suppliers here that I work with, family and friends, and people that actually know how to do the resin printing really well. And I've got some. I'm not sure if you can see, but this is like a mimic. It's like a treasure chest that turns into like something evil that will eat you.
Let me zoom in here there on you.
Yeah, I don't know if you can see that very well.
Okay, yeah. So that was
That's printed from a local resin printer. So someone that's got a printer at home. And this is the Dijang. I don't know if you've seen the new Shang-Chi movie and the Legend of the Ten Rings, the Marvel movie. Put it up there. It's a six-legged creature with four wings. So, and so that's actually from Chinese legend. It's not, believe it or not, Marvel doesn't own that. So it's actually it's from mythology in general. And
so I'm curious, how? Just talk to me a little bit about pricing for these, because it's like that. That's just a space that I'm not too familiar with. But people like how and how are these sold? These are usually sold in bundles. Is that correct? And how are you pricing the STL downloadable files versus what it would cost for you to print yourself and ship out the other ones?
So, I mean, everyone prices it a little bit different with their STLs, but I'm kind of doing just like $2 a file per file. So 25 at the end of the campaign, we'll have 20. If you back the campaign from the start, there'll be 25 STL files that you can actually use. So that, it's about $50 and you get 25 files and you can print what you want, print them as much as you need or you want for your games. With the other resin miniatures that I'm releasing, it's based on size, so how much resin I'm using. So if it's like a figurine that's just humanoid and it's a bit smaller like that, I sell them for $5 each. So you buy a pack of 10, and I'm letting fans pick a pack of 10, which we packed in a Luminous Ages box that we've manufactured. It's a miniatures box. There we go. It says miniatures on there. It's on the back there as well.
Nice.
Dragon Dreams miniatures. That's the first miniatures we've ever released. And we're packing 10 with like some nice packaging to make sure they don't move around or get damaged. Then the next tier is like a medium one, which is a little bit bigger, like about 40 centimeters wide, 4 centimeters wide. And they're $7 each. That's a medium. And then we have like a large one. Oh, there we go. There's like an enemy. This is like a boar. I think it's called a fei, the fei, F-E-I in Chinese mythology. It's like a boar with a cyclops eye and a snake for a tail. So that's quite a bit big, that monster.
Yeah.
So if it's 7 centimeters wide, basically the more resin I use to make that bigger, the obviously it retails for more, so about $10 each one. And then we've got a bigger dragon. We've also got like foxes and dragons. So it's just based on output. If we're producing this is a bigger fox, so it's got more tails, and as you can see, it's longer. Sorry, I'm moving too much.
Yeah.
It's a 3-tailed fox. We have 1-tailed fox right up to 9-tailed fox, because our foxes are a race you can play, or a species you can actually be a fox, and it levels up and it grows a tail.
So are these ones that you're selling, are they all being done by 3D printer? They're being done by 3D printers in resin, and sort of, are they printed one at a time? Like, how is that?
Yeah, one at a time. I mean, we've got multiple printers running, like in the sense of I've got one. I have another colleague who's got a couple, and then there's a guy that I use who's a supplier here in Adelaide. He's got a 3D printer as well. So some people have multiple. Like, you can go to places where they have multiple here. But like literally, at the moment, that's my workshop. As you can see, it's busy behind here with commissions and all that. But we're just doing it all in-house. And the great thing about these resin printers, I love about it, is they're actually environmentally friendly. They use a soy-based ink, or soy-based resin, should I say. Oil. It's oil-based soy. And it also biodegrades, eco-friendly. So it's not plastic. It's something that's going to last a while, but it will biodegrade eventually. So it's not something that's going to be, hurting the environment and all that. So it's really good with our messaging, with our stories and all that sort of stuff. You know. So if we want the kids to stay alive in the future, we've got to look after the planet. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a cool. It's definitely a cool space, and
Yeah,
something that we haven't really talked about on this show before. So, definitely
that's
something
cool.
to keep an eye out. And
Yeah.
those miniatures, definitely look super cool. Um, so, I want to talk about this latest launch for the By Z. This is. I have to imagine it was a challenge just figuring out, okay, how do we, like, I've got this concept and it's sort of a hybrid launch that you're doing, or a combination of launch.
Yeah.
It is a comic book anthology, as well as a 5e compatible
RPG.
RPG campaign and content. And then also it also involves these downloads and miniatures. Why did you decide to combine all of these things into one product and launch, versus separating them out into discrete launches? I'm curious, and how are you able to sort of like make this truly a best of all worlds sort of product launch for your audience?
Um, well, for me, I think it was all in the name and the theme and the mythology. I mean, the Baize, I don't know if you know the story, the Baize was like this mythical creature, a lion, part goat, got goat horns and about eight eyes. No, sorry, nine eyes, I was right, and eight horns. And he knows about all monsters of the universe. So he knows about all 11,521 monsters to be exact, and he met the emperor, first Chinese emperor, Huangdi, the Yellow Emperor, and this is the mythology, of course. And he, like the monster, passed on that knowledge in the book, in the form of the Book of the Monsters. So I thought, well, if I'm going to make a story about the Book of Monsters, why not make it an actual almost like a campaign that people can play with, like obviously monster sheets, like actual Dungeons and Dragons monsters that are based on the Chinese mythology, and then we've got our own signature monsters in there as well from the Luminous Ages universe. And why not make it all monster based? I do love monsters, like, and a lot of my stuff is like obviously about cute animals and stuff. A lot of the stuff has that in it, and wizards and magic. But I've always have loved that kind of darker fantasy, or that I mean, I think that is evident in my work, the darker fantasy, but this one really goes to the core of like what I like, in terms of, I mean, even the Chinese legends of the monsters that I was been researching, they were so surreal and crazy and different. I just love it. I mean, it's just, so for me, I really wanted to do this like this to really to show, well, to give it justice. It's a Baize, it's the Book of Monsters. Hey, we're going to give you the monsters as well. You know what I mean? So it's like almost like a marketing tactic, as corny as it sounds, but it's like, you want the Book of Monsters? Well, you're going to get the monsters. They come to life out of the book, kind of thing. So I don't know if that explains it, but and you know me, I'm a bit of a sucker for punishment. I like to work too much. No, not really. I suppose I could have staggered it out, but I really wanted to make this big campaign as big as possible, and really see what I could do in terms of pushing it really far. Um, like I actually have a lot of books in the works. I'm talking to another creator about doing another combined collaborative Luminous Ages book with Slavic mythology right now, and there's other books that I've actually already written outlines for. And next year will be another two books released. I'm hoping, if depending what happens, with the con landscape and all that here in Australia. So, but like for me, it's like, well, I'm not going to have time to stagger out that many Kickstarters. You know what I mean? Like I don't have time to do 4 little Kickstarters a year. I prefer to do 2 big Kickstarters. Do one like around about March. Do one around about October or September, and then spend the time fulfilling them and making the products really, really good. I mean,
Absolutely.
everyone has been really impressed with Tavern of Dreams. I'm so grateful. So, but I made sure that book was really good. So
Yeah. And so, I mean, and it seems like this is something that you've been building up to, with RPG stuff. I mean, you've been did a launch in the past, and have offered gaming mats, and I know those do well for you at conventions. Also looks like you launched a metal dice set, which seems pretty cool and is something that will definitely be loved by the RPG crowd. Talk a little bit about this and how'd you go about getting these designed and made?
So I was talking with one of my board game manufacturers from the people that I did the card game with and stuff years ago, and they said, yeah, we make dice and we've got a mold. We can make a mold for you. And what they are is rounded, hollow metal dice. It's probably really hard because to see they're not all gold, but this is just a prototype sample. But the actual final dice have colored numbers, so you will be able to see the numbers. You can see them. I mean, I can see them now anyway. With my, it's just these cameras aren't great.
Yeah.
But we've got two D20s, D12, D6. This is a D6 die. That's a 6-sided die. And they're actually dragons, actually little sculptures of dragons on each side with a number. I think. Can you see that one there? Does that shine right? I think it's number 2.
I can see the sort of dragon outline, but can't really make out the number.
Yeah, I think the camera's not great. So, but I mean, I roll it right now, and I just rolled the number 5. So that was a good roll on a D6. So, but yeah, I basically got got them to build a mold for me, and it's a spherical round dice mold it's a hollow dice, and they're gorgeous dice. They actually make a really nice sound when you kind of hold them. If you've got a kind of a sound when you're rolling them together. And then
roll those golden bones, huh?
That's exactly right. So just rolled a number 2, rolled a number 5 on the D10, and what did I get on the D4? I only got a 1. That's not good. I'm not having any luck tonight with the dice. But yeah, so I just got them manufactured. There's going to be multiple colors on the front of the dice as well, so you can pick like red numbers, black numbers, silver numbers, and there's different types of metal dice as well, in the sense of different colors. So you can buy black nickel dice. There's a whole range of stuff. So, and we've got coins. So that's the coins in our comic book universe, the Equatorian coins, and people can use them in Dungeons and Dragons as well. So coins are used for all sorts of stuff in D&D, like when you get inspiration in battle, or if you have things like the lucky feat and you've got 3 lucky tokens you can use per game or per round, and or wild shape tokens. If you're a druid, you turn into an animal. You can only turn into an animal twice per turn, or per long rest, should I say. So yeah, I just kind of went all out towards the D&D. And the good thing about these little products is that they're just shipped air express. We don't have to worry about shipping on a container. Because they're small, literally you can fit like probably 80 of these in a big box. You know what I mean? I could send over 2 big boxes, and it's cheaper than doing it by boat. So I've learned my mistakes from this year is try to limit the sea shipping, and for the moment until things kind of normalize, and go for little products and make more local stuff, make things from home, which is the resin stuff. And yeah, so.
Yeah, I think those are some good lessons, especially in an age and where things are even some things that you were counting on, or you could count on, a little bit less counting on. I mean, like right now, the U.S. put a pause on certain shipping classes to Australia, such that
and New Zealand as well.
In New Zealand, yeah, and such to ship a single issue of a comic book, it cost like $69 or something like that right now.
Why is that happening? What's going on? Don't you guys like us? What did we do wrong?
Honestly, it's on your end.
Really?
On the Australian distribution, they've shut down so many. Like, I think it must be a part of like the whole Melbourne shutdown, is just that the carriers aren't there, the receivers aren't there, just the whole supply chain just is not there, such that the U.S. can't offer certain classes of shipping and have it even be reliable. So hopefully the suspension is temporary, because I know that's not going to be sustainable long term. And I also know, like, the Australian market for Kickstarter is like number 4 in terms of comics, like worldwide. Like I'm pretty sure like every campaign I've launched, we've had a good support from Australians, and there are plenty of creators like yourself that are doing great things creatively. So it would definitely be a big loss to not have reliable. And even before that, it was still, $28 or something to ship a comic or a couple comics to Australia, which is still so much, but 3 times that is just starts to get insane.
Yeah, we do have a problem with, I think at the moment, the Melbourne and Sydney warehouses for post. There's actually, I did see photos of the warehouse, a backlog with so many things, because I think as people are in lockdown, they're ordering online. And so Melbourne and Sydney are just kind of stuck with all these goods in due to the lockdown, because we've been in lockdown for so long. So people are doing a lot of online buying, and I think that's what the problem is. So I mean, Adelaide is fine. We're good here. Brisbane is fine. Perth is fine. Why can't we
come visit?
Adelaide, I'm going to make Adelaide the next big, great city of Australia. All right, that's my goal, Tyler. All right, that's my lifelong mission. The arts city. It will be known as the arts city for the arts. All right.
Well, now we're talking. See, you thought what Anthony's done over the last 5 years with all of these various products was the grand vision, but no, he's just getting started.
That's it.
Well, this is awesome, Anthony. Thank you so much for taking the time to go over some of this stuff and hopefully get other creators out there thinking about how they can expand their own IPs and enter some different areas. Any sort of final words of wisdom or encouragement for the creators out there that have grand visions but maybe don't know where to start, or having just a tough enough time getting the first thing going?
Just start small and let it grow, like every year. As you know, it's been since 2016, and I've literally just started off with comics, then I moved into this, and I still support, like, I go back to comics always because I want to continue the story. But just start small. It can happen if you've got a big vision and you really want to do these things. Work hard, you can do it. It's just a matter of applying yourself, and it's just always do right by your fans. Like always provide. Like if you're going to do a Kickstarter, make sure they get something better than you expect. Like always focus on the product being amazing, or the story being the best that you can do, and obviously within budget and limitations. But it's start small is the thing, and then build it up. Like it just started off as a serialized issue comic, and it's gone into, like you said, card games, it's graphic novels, illustrated novels. Now we've got a comic book, RPG book, miniatures, and just really keep on delivering content. People do want your stuff if you work hard at it, and it's just believe in yourself. If you've got something that you think is unique, don't give up on that unique vision. That you think you've got something that is a different voice, don't give up hope, and just start small and build it up. It's literally what I recommend doing, and watch out for the shipping. Like try and like, and when I say start small, like what I mean is, like this, we've gone to kind of, because of the pandemic, we've gone to starting small, doing small things like this, dice, miniatures, little things. Things that you can deliver or make yourself, or it's not going to cost huge amount of money to bring over from, whether you're making in China or Korea or whatever country. Do try hard enamel pins. Try manufacturing a whole series of them with your comics. They're lighter, they're lightweight things. So think about, how can you get your gross profit higher? If you can get, like for us, gaming mats might cost say $30, but we sell them for $70 to $80. 50% margin. Always try and look for things that have got high margin as well. Like comics are great, but if you can try and sell a graphic novel, you're going to make a bigger margin, as you know, Tyler. You know what I mean? Like if you can put extra bells and whistles on that comic and make it a really deluxe book, or limited edition, limiting things, having something that's limited edition, helps to make the increase the profitability of your products. And it's not about, it's not about money grabbing or anything like that. It's about surviving and having a profitable business. This is a business. We're not fine artists in galleries, unfortunately. Like, we're not, selling to one big collector. We are selling to a lot of collectors out there, and people do want to collect, and we are a commercial business. Us comic creators and artists, illustrators or writers, we are a commercial business, and we need be creative. We have to have a balance of being creative, but we need to also realize it's a commercial business. It is. It's not. It's not just something that we're doing only for the love, and that's important. But we need a balance of both to keep on doing what we love. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Do I sound like I've sold my soul or what?
No, but you still got 46 days on this Kickstarter. So by the end, you may have had to throw your soul up there for a high-end pledge.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much, Anthony. The book is The Baize and the Book of Monsters. It is a comic book anthology. It is a D&D compatible RPG experience, and he's also got awesome miniatures available for download or for physical purchase. So I really do appreciate you sharing your vision and what you've learned along the way. Thanks so much, man.
No worries, man. Thank you for having me.
All right. Take care. And everyone, thanks for watching, and we can't wait to see what you launch next.